the Whiskey 61 Lounge in the Bank Plus studio.
Check it out.
And good morning. Welcome in. Dogs at Tigers this weekend, Baton Rouge, 5 o'clock, ESPN. And, wow. On the ESPN. How about that? Pretty cool. We take it for granted now for years. The Dogs and the Rebs just, fought and clawed to get on TV. And then when they were on TV, they were on crappy networks. And now we take it for granted. Ole Miss, Georgia Tech this weekend is on ABC at 2:30. Mississippi State at LSU is on ESPN at 5. Those are great windows. Tons and tons of people will watch those games. And now it's almost like we shrug our shoulders. Oh, yeah, we're on it. We're on a great time slot and a great platform again. It wasn't like that in 1986, 1993. Hell, I remember in the 90s when I was a student, when you were on Thursday Night Football, it was a game changer. I was at Mississippi State. I had my buddies at Ole Miss. I would go to both. I don't know how many of Tuberville's Thursday night shows I went to. It was the Grill on the Square at that time. Now it's Boo-Ray. And it was a big deal to have a Thursday night game. And cameras come into the stadium in the town and showcase your team. Now we're on ABC and ESPN this weekend. Amazing. Out of bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, driven by the Ram trucks at Mac Hike in Flowwood. MacHikeFlowwood.com. MacHikeFlowwood.com for your next Ram truck or Jeep Wrangler. Our guests join us on the Yuengling Lager guest line. We welcome in David Morris, QB1, QB Country. He has coached, worked with Will Rogers, Luke Altmaier, among others. And David joins us on the Out of Bounds show. David Morris, good morning. How are you, buddy?
Hey, Bo. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. You remember, I was kind of reminiscing there about the 90s. You remember those days?
I do. It seems like a long time ago. Now, I didn't, let's see, I got to Ole Miss, my first fall was 98. So, yeah, the Grill, man. It's a great little spot, right?
I can remember going to see my buddies. Tuberville had this gift, as you know. I know you eventually were under Cutcliffe for several years, who was also a really good coach. But Tuberville had a gift to work the room. He could press I guess that's why he's a U.S. senator today. Yeah. He could press the flesh damn near better than any coach I've ever been around, David. I'm sure you remember that for that one year that you had him.
Yeah, he could do it. My true freshman year, he was my coach, and he was good at that stuff. I remember on a couple of news conferences that I was a part of. He like you said, he kind of ran the room and had a lot of fun with it, and kind of goofed off and kind of was sarcastic with reporters before it was trendy.
Yes. You could get away with it a little bit more back then because you didn't have everybody live streaming you on YouTube, right?
That's right. That's right.
Nobody had a phone in the in those Tuberville Cheryl press conferences. Nobody had a cell phone, so it was just kind of.
That's right.
They said it, and then you had to read about it the next day in a newspaper, which blows my two producers' minds since they're both under 30. David Morris, QB Country on the Out of Bounds show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. I want to start, David, with Will Rogers, and you have known this young man for years and worked with him. Just kind of talk about his progression at that position. Eli and Dak did not have to start until their redshirt sophomore year, which I think is a big deal, and most of the time is the way it needs to go. Just to give yourself an opportunity to get your feet under you and develop and grow up and so on. Will was thrown to the Wolves as a true freshman in the Southeastern Conference. Even the elite schools, guys struggle with that, David. Talk about watching his development, maturation process, and so on with Will Rogers and how he's looked this year.
the guy's a quarterback. He's a gamer. He's always kind of had that clutch thing, that confident, the edge to him, and I think guys respond to that. He also is very unique. So when a true freshman shows up on campus, but he's authentically confident, and when he goes in there, he doesn't make mistakes, and he knows where to go with the football, and he knows how to continue drives. That stuff is unique, especially for a young guy. And then I think it's impressive when a young guy is himself and he's confident enough to be himself in the locker room, and there's something to that. And especially these days, I feel like it's harder to find those kind of guys. That's who Will is, and then when he's playing football, he's a technician, and he's 79% this year. I mean, that's kind of unheard of. To be at 70s is unheard of, honestly. I mean, it's really, really hard. The guy that leads America, leads the NCAA in completion percentage at the end of this year probably will be 70%, 71 maybe. So for him to be, through 2 games, and granted the schedule gets tougher starting this weekend, but to be 79% is unbelievable, and he's just that good. He's that smart. He plays football on time, and I do think that he has a confidence about him that does encourage others around him to kind of believe more.
David Morris on the Out of Bounds show, QB Country, has coached and worked with Will Rogers for years. When did you start working with Will Rogers, David?
So it was right after his. We got connected maybe the end of his high school career through Gardner Minshew, and who played for his daddy, right? And then it was kind of then, and then we worked together a little bit as true freshman year, as last year, and then this off season as well. And he'll just come down to Mobile. He has some family down here, and we've had some really good off seasons, and just really impressed with him. He's also really been good just about. He's eager. Like he'll send a lot of videos, on his own, like where he's in all season training or in the facility, doing things, and he'll send and just want some feedback. He's a gym rat, and so it's been several years, but I've always just been impressed by his eagerness to get better.
When you hear, I think some of this is nonsense because every quarterback is a system quarterback, but it's almost like we like to, we're taking a shot. People are saying, well, he's just a system QB. I think he could work in several different systems. What
kind of like Tom Brady, right?
Yes, thank you. What is your reaction when you hear that about Will Rogers, David?
Well, I'm just like, well, what's Tom Brady? What was Joe Montana? What was Drew Brees? And that's who he is. And now, like, the future will tell us what what the trajectory looks like. I can't predict and all that, but he's in that same mold of a guy, confident. He's going to continue drives. He's going to check it down when he needs to. He knows the value in 3rd and 12 and throwing a little, a 6-yard completion. You know what I mean? And those things pay off. Let you put the ball in your guys' hands that are, that are some of the best athletes on the field. So he just knows how to play quarterback. And I think that's kind of out the window. I mean, Mac Jones, right? It's system quarterback. I mean, all that stuff is kind of silly when it gets down to it. Kirk Cousins. I mean, all these guys. I mean, you have some freaks out there that can, run around and make impressive,
sure,
throws on the run with arm angles that are trendy and all that. Like, man, give me a dude that's 79% every day of the week. I mean, if you want to win football games, give me Will Rogers.
What could you knew obviously before he got to you because you worked with Gardner Minshew, who, like you mentioned, Wyatt, his father, coached too. But could you tell right off the bat in the first session or 10, 15, 30 minutes that you worked with him that he was a coach's son?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, those kids have been around football their whole life. So really, Will, from a football IQ standpoint, from a repetition standpoint, from a experience standpoint, I mean, the guys literally, I think coaches' sons are 5 to 10 years ahead of other kids. I mean, my dad was in real estate, and heck, we turned on football. We love football, right? But I mean, like, we didn't come home and talk about coverages,
Sure,
how to protect that fourth man on the weak side, from a pressure standpoint, and it just, like, at some point, like, I was driving the football conversation. Dad wasn't necessarily, right. And so, to me, I think it's just a different deal when you get a coach's kid because of their familiarity with everything that entails football. Even the roller coasters of emotions that come with football. So I just think you got a kid when you got a coach's son, Philip Rivers, right? Coaches, they're just ahead of their time, and in all aspects, kind of from the emotional intelligence standpoint, but also from a situational football standpoint. And you see a lot of that with Will, every week.
David Morris, QB Country on the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. He joins us on the Yuengling Lager guest line. David, I thought when Will was thrown to the Wolves that first year, it was an all-SEC schedule. Boy, that's fun, right? You don't get to draw any UT Chattanooga or Wofford or Troy or, so on. And I actually thought he did a hell of a job his first year. I mean, really was underrated. And then year two, I didn't think last year they had that good a team. And I thought Will was outstanding. I thought they were solid, right? And they won 7 games. This year, they've grown up a little bit, some more veterans. And we heard during the spring and summer, this was now Will Rogers' team. Walk us through. You played. You saw what Eli did. You can't just walk in as a freshman and take over the team. It has to be a gradual process. And I think Will's handled that really well. Your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no question. Well, also, you're going up against 4 or 5 other guys every day that are really good football players, the guys that are on scholarship. So we always tell our kids, when you get a scholarship, what a blessing, what a gift. But, like, end of the day, you just got an opportunity to compete with 4 other guys that are really talented, so it's easy to be just, in awe of the scholarship. But, man, you got really good players all around you. And guess what? They're looking for one that's better than you in next year's class. So, I mean, I think that it takes time. It takes, you got to earn the trust of people. That takes a long time, right? And I think that, after his true freshman year, you're kind of like, wow, a kid just, he was in high school last year and he's out there, dealing it. But still, here we go, a big competition in the spring and into the summer and all these things. And so my thought would be that you don't really, look at Stetson Bennett. How long did it take at Georgia,
no doubt,
before he's like, okay, you know what? He is our guy. Guess when that happened? It was probably after the national championship. You know what I mean? There's people, but whatever, a couple games before that, SEC championship, he has a moment or two against Alabama. And they're like, oh, you got to put in Daniel, you got to put in these guys. And it's one of those things that takes a while. But when it's your team, man, it just there is a weight that is lifted, and I think you can see that. And Will's got a ton of confidence anyway. But when it's your team and you're not looking over your shoulder, you can there's a fail-safe environment to some degree, right? Like you can throw 2 picks in the first half and be like, all right, I'm good. You the coach isn't going to freaking pull you. That's a big deal. It does. That is earned over a long, long period of time, and but when you do earn it, there's just a level of freedom there that I think a quarterback can play with that's important.
David Morris, QB Country on the Out of Bounds Show. Do you give a pretty good eye roll when you hear he doesn't have the arm strength? I think it's ridiculous.
It's stupid. It's stupid. He's going to throw, hash to sideline throws every game. And, whatever. What he can throw at 61, 62 yards. Well, geez, how far does he need to throw it? At the end of the half on a whatever designed Hail Mary, how often are you going to throw it over 60 yards? He's got plenty of arm. Does he need to continue to get stronger? 100%. So does Tom Brady, and so does, Stetson Bennett. So does everybody. So does Spencer Rattler. So, I mean, it's all, you're always getting stronger and all that. I mean, but the separation, the differentiation between an arm like Bryce Young and Will Rogers, I mean, you're not talking about, there's not a great differentiation there. You're talking about little things, and even then, then you're talking about measurables that would fall in, let's say, Will's favor. So I do think the arm strength thing is overrated. The main thing is, can he make all the throws? And it's 100% over and over again, every week against great competition. So that, no doubt, there's going to be some bigger, stronger guys out there, Anthony Richardson's of the world that, man, how many balls did he miss on Saturday?
Yeah.
And so what do you want? Anyway, it's tricky, it's interesting, and it is one of those things that the NFL falls for big, strong, talented guys that have high ceilings every year. If they're still saying you have a real high ceiling and you're going to the league, good luck with that. You're probably turning into a tight end or getting cut.
Right. David Morris on the Yuengling Lager guest line. How many guys do you work with at a time, David?
So at a time, we either do one-on-one or we do, small group. It's kind of crazy right now. We've been at it for a long time. Went full time with this in 2010, but started, training guys in 2004. We got 130 college quarterbacks right now, and 13 NFL guys. And so I say all that not to brag, but it's more just I do think there's, it's kind of it's one of those things where, when you commit to something and kind of play the long game, things pay off a little bit. I'm not talking about financial. I'm just saying our guys are really growing up, and that's been incredible to watch. But typically when a guy like Will comes in town, he'll be with other college quarterbacks or NFL quarterbacks, and they'll stay for several days at a time, and then
that's cool.
Go back. So it's a pretty tight knit environment when we're training our kind of upper echelon guys, and it's everything from movement to arm care to rotational strength to on the field and board work.
All right, QB country. David Morris on the Yuengling Lager guest line. Let's switch gears and talk about Luke Altmaier. Very athletic, has played a little bit. He's in a heck of a battle with Jackson Dart. You've worked with him. Talk about his maturation process.
Yeah, I mean, I think coming out of spring, Luke had a really good spring and is in the lead in that competition. I think Dart had a really good summer and fall camp, and I think they're kind of head to head. I think every week they'll both play for a little while, and we'll just see. I mean, just when I'm focused on Luke, though, Luke's special. He's had a ton of adversity, even at Starkville High School. There's some things that happen and that he went through and that he overcame that are just impressive. And by the way, you never hear about, the way he overcomes adversity. And so what I mean by that is he's a tough kid, and he's kind of made for this. And he's really, really, really talented, as good as anybody in the country. So, look, I don't know. I can't predict what's going to happen in the competition, but Luke Altmaier is a special passer, one of the best passers in America. Similar to Will, played the position forever, and accurate and anticipates and just one of those things. One of those guys are when the ball's in his hands, he's like, God, that guy's freaking sniper. Just always on time and throwing it. Obviously got banged up a little bit on Saturday and hoping, he'll have be healthy and be back at it this week. But really impressed with him, and one of the best pure passers we've ever come across.
David Morris on the Out of Bounds show, played at Ole Miss, now QB country the last 12 plus years, and working with NFL players, college players, high school players, and so on. And he joins us on the Yuengling Lager guest line. Blake Scott, you got a question for Mr. David Morris?
Yeah, David, you said you've been doing this now for a little over a decade, and when you started doing this, QBs were winning national titles in college with like 25 pass attempts. Now, feels like you have to throw the ball 40 times a game to be one of the top end offenses in the country. What have you seen from a hands-on perspective, the difference in when you started and you were getting QBs and now when you're training QBs? What's kind of the biggest difference you're seeing in the actual player itself and how they're coming to you and how they're leaving you, their kind of skill sets?
Yeah. So, I get out of Ole Miss in 2003, and you had spread them out. And last time you spread them out, even in the league, and you're under center. You know what I mean? I mean, you could, when you go empty, most of the time you're in the gun, but when you're 2 by 2 or 3 by 1, last time you're just under center, right? And that was the case for even, let's call it till 2011, 2012. And then, the shotgun is just taken over. Everybody's in the gun now. Everybody is, using space more intelligently, and everybody is throwing it more because, I think, it's kind of been the conversation for a long time. When you're quick hitters, your smoke screens and your bubbles and your, whatever, even your quick game, your hitches, or extension of the run game, but I think they've found more ways to extend the run game in the pass with RPO, with the zone reads and all of these things. And so I would just say that the RPO game and even before that, the zone read game, which ultimately is kind of the option in a sense, right? But the way that's changed football, and now the way it's changing in the league, it just makes it harder on defenses. But yeah, I mean, like AJ McCarron, he's here. We're about to train right now. It's kind of funny, but when he was at Alabama and won a couple natties in a row, I mean, he was under center a lot, right? Mm-hmm. And then now Stetson Bennett, guy we train, a little different deal because Georgia does do some. Kind of traditional football, but heck, you look at the SEC statistics and, Stetson Bennett now this year is just behind Will Rogers from a standpoint of completion percentage and yards and the touchdown interception thing. He's behind Will pretty big, but he's second in the SEC in pass yards. So like at Georgia, Alabama, these traditional powerhouses that would just run it down your throat, are starting to spread it out more, and obviously Alabama's kind of gone, 100% to the spread offense for the most part, right? And so I think that I think it has evolved, and I would say the RPO game is probably the biggest influencer.
Man, that was fun. David Morris, QB Country, joining us on the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. David, we appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Congratulations on all the success. Hope you have a great week, buddy. Thanks, man.
Hey, Bo. Always good to talk to you, man. Talk soon. See you.
David Morris, QB Country on the Yuengling Oktoberfest guest line. Good morning. Welcome in. 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Going to week 3 in college football and week 2 in the NFL. That was awesome. You can find that on our podcast. Search Apple Podcasts, Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds.